Hello, my name's Faye Greenhalgh. I am recording this in Melbourne, Australia. I've lived and worked here for approximately 5 to 6 years. I'm originally from the UK, hence the accent. Thank you to the Women in Lighting group who asked me to give this little talk on the project-based area to celebrate the Women in Lighting community. And thank you to all who's involved. How terrifying. A little about me, I have worked in lighting for approximately 15, 16 years, 17. I'm very, very lucky to do this job, and I do absolutely love what I do. Have a great team here in Melbourne, and I've worked in various places with other great people as well. So without any further ado, we'll get on with the talk. This is the project part. So we're going to cover 2 projects that I've worked on with the team here in Melbourne, 2 very, very different projects. I'm not going to go too techie or too into the design. It's just more very visual, very quickly put together photos and presentation. Just talk through a little bit about the processes and some of the ideas behind it. And before I start this, I'm actually going to talk about maybe one of the projects that have inspired me the most. Nothing to do with me at all, I wish. So without any further ado, we'll get on with that one just to see where my ideas and thoughts and my design intents originally came from. So this is the beautiful Sackler Bridge crossing at Kew Gardens in southwest London. I think I originally came across this, I'd say in about 2006, it was a while ago, I can't remember now. And it's just always stayed with me, this image of this bridge, this structure snaking across the beautiful setting in Kew Gardens. And I think the thing that maybe stood out to me most about this bridge was the simplicity of it, how striking it is, though it's just so simple. Probably not in structure or in thought and the time and effort putting it together, but just the simplicity and the just uniqueness of it. The architect of this, John Cullen, I forgot his name right, has gone on to forge a lot of my ideas and concepts throughout my career, and I've got to say that this image is probably used for me in client meetings or in concepts or in ideas or putting theories together at least once a week, and it's just something that has stayed with me. Here, the construction, on the bottom right hand side of the screen, you can see how during the day it's just not standing out too much in the space. It's not look at me, it's just blending in with the beautiful surrounds of Kew Gardens, and it's not detracting from anything. The light at night just creates this really soft glow. Again, less is more. Outdoors at night should be magical, not overlit. Turn the big light off. Just put your little low-level lights on. These amazing lights that were designed, I'm not going to mention suppliers, but people probably know who this is. And it was a long time ago. This was quite groundbreaking, I think, back in the day. And just the construction, obviously you could tell, I love it. It stuck with me and it still stays with me, this simplistic way of not just lighting the structure, but everybody coming together to work in harmony with the surroundings and what's going on, and to not try and overtake that and just let it sit there and sing. And it's just this beautiful organic shape. And honestly, all this time later, it still inspires me. And it's also led in my career to a lot of elements that I put into a lot of my designs, which is nature. And I love shadows and water ripples. Probably about 20 minutes ago, we were creating water ripples through lighting in the office, testing things. And dappled light and lights through trees and lights through shapes and structure play a big part. And I do believe it's all from his image, which, as I said before, continues to play a large part in my day-to-day designs. And I think with having Pinterest and us being such a social media and media-led, that images these days can be so evocative. And this is definitely a project that has done that and stayed with me for all this time. I've been speaking to the manufacturers of this project since I got asked to give this speech, and they sent me this image on the left, which is completely mind-blowing. On the right is this beautiful, smooth, everything's put together, everything's formed so organically and beautifully. And this is a component just for part of the lighting that they were putting together by hand at the time to build it. And how I've actually listed all the people that were involved in this project here, just because I think now I'm more aware, but when I started out and when I first saw this bridge, I didn't think about all these people having to put all this together and all the actual structure and the mess and everything and putting everything and getting everything hidden and the details of when I think these guys said that they had to install these lights by a boat, which is just amazing. So thank you to the guys for passing on some information for me, and I hope the image on the right hand side of the beautiful space and the reflections and the surroundings could actually inspire someone else just like it has me. So I'm going to talk about a few of my projects now. Going from less is more. This is it's full on. This is the Forum in Melbourne, Australia. This is an amazing building, actually. It was built in the 1920s, and the lighting is over the top. The building is over the top. The director here always calls it Disneyland. It was crazy. We didn't know where to start. There's a lot going on with the building, but it's a much, much loved building, and people here, I found out, are very, very passionate in Melbourne about this building. So we have a lot to think about, not just with the lighting. It's a heritage listed building, and people love it, and people didn't want it to change. It had to be upgraded, but the whole feel and the Forum is just such an iconic building in Melbourne, and people did not want it to change. I think people could see it needed a little bit of an uplift, and it was tired, it needed a little bit of love. But as soon as you mentioned to people that it was getting, the construction work was starting on it, anybody I spoke to, anybody, the team, everybody was quite passionate about this building. So I was very lucky to be involved, and very lucky to be involved in part of the heritage side of things, which is something I love doing. Just talk you through a little bit more of the project. The image you're seeing now is the doors actually into the theatre from the foyer. So there was sort of 2 or 3 parts to this job. The entry of the foyer was needing a good lot of love. It was very tired and actually a little bit dangerous with the light levels. And then the entry to the theatre was another problem. But with everything going on, as you'll see through the images, there was a lot of lights just higgledy around, and there was nowhere to lead anyone into the theatre. So we used the lighting to create a wayfinding tool, just so we could see, people could naturally feel the way to go. So we'll go through this project a little bit more. The image on the left is a very sad image. So the building was built in the 1920s. It's had a few reiterations over its lifetime. It was originally a dance hall, and then it was a movie theatre, and now it's actually largely used for, there's a huge comedy festival here that's held once a year, but mainly it's gigs. People go there, there's probably gigs on, I feel, probably every single night at the Forum, so, and it's well loved for its music venue. So on the left, you can just see it's just getting a bit tired. This amazing venue was just starting to look just not very nice. If you believe it or not, the paint work hasn't changed from the left to the right. With it being heritage, the paint had to be the same colour as it was. I think it was given a quick clean and uplift, but it wasn't painted a different colour. It was just tidied up, and you can just see how the lighting has just revitalised the whole space and really injected a sense of life into it. We were very, very lucky and fortunate to work on this project. It was amazing, running around, it was Disneyland, just doing crazy things on it. So yes, it's blue and orange. We'll go through the colour temperatures a little bit more in it, but where you can see the ceiling there where it's blue, there's a thing called the Forum Blue, and they definitely wanted to keep the Forum Blue. We'll talk about that a little bit more. You can see on the right hand side there's some little dots. So there's been a starry sky in there since the original opening, and I was lucky enough to get up there in the ceiling. Ooh, a little bit scary, and I waded through about 100 years of pigeon poo, and I found the original cans from the original Starry Skies. They actually used like baked bean cans. It was pretty amazing, pretty filthy, but amazing to be up there. The Starry Sky became a little bit of a feature in another area, and I'll talk you through that area. So you can see as it's been changed and added on, and the first image on the left, that was an addition that came later. They added that on as a little bit of a bar. That got taken off, and you can see on the image on the right that they actually designed this guy here called Stephen Hennessy, who's a lighting designer in his own right in Melbourne, which is also this amazing designer with metal, and he made these bars, which are so beautiful and really talk back to the age and the heritage of the building. The other thing that was of big importance was the fire screen. You can see that safety curtain is the original safety curtain. This image really does not speak to the beauty of that curtain. It is just such a wow factor when you go into the theatre. But I hope you can see from these images how the lighting has just transformed the space, and again, giving it some sense of life and usage again. Some before pictures. It's just looking a little bit tired, a little bit dated. The sculptures were all lit. Maybe the guy on the bottom left was not lit in the most appropriate way, should we say, highlighting certain features. And there was real hotspots. So they've done the right thing over years, you know, they just tried to highlight, and things change over the years. So there was just these real hotspots of lighting to these sculptures. And it was really overtaking. And actually, as you can see from the image on the left, the contrast is just terrible. And it just made everything else look so dull because that sculpture was so overlit. And it's just dull. The whole space just felt really dull. That's the only word I can say to, you know, capture this. But you can see on the image on the left, all the detailing, this beautiful, it was amazing, the details, it was too much. And again, as I was saying, less is more, probably not with this building, but with lighting, less is definitely more. So we just picked out a few elements of the space. We did not like everything. So we highlighted a few key features and then just softly washed the rest. So we stopped that, make that super hot spot. And it was just a few areas were just softly washed. So you can see the guy down there on the left-hand side is no longer highlighted inappropriately. He's just gently washed from behind. You get a different view now if you stood right at the front of the stage. The whole idea and the scheme behind this was the blue had to stay. So the Forum blue is a very well-known blue, and everybody loves it. So without trying to go too orange, we created this amber tone, but we had to be mindful of the colour of the original plasterwork because it was heritage and we didn't want to change the colour. So we played around with quite a few colours to get this, what we think is quite a nice tone of just general soft amber, but with the blue, which had to stay. This is again looking at my favourite chap in the corner. We decided to backlight him a little bit softer. Again, just not lighting everything. So the lanterns were re-glowed and cleaned up. So they were always going to be lit. I'm just going to talk about what we did and the concepts here. So on the concepts, which I couldn't find to put in here, we lit this completely differently. And what happened was we got site, and this just shows the importance of actually physically getting fittings in your hand and going to site and trying it, because what you think and as much experience as you can have just doesn't always work. So we went to site, we tried all these different techniques, and actually everything that we thought we were going to do, we didn't do. And what we did instead was just very small, because the blue was still quite overpowering. You can see there in the top, it's creating this little bit purple, and it had to stay. So we created these little pockets. We just uplit a few columns, backlit elsewhere, and just created a very soft wash just so that nothing was overly lit over the front. This was such an amazing chance to light this space. We had great fun. Getting to that spot there was crazy. It actually took about 15 minutes to get to that spot by going up and around the old back of house, rigging areas. It's pretty amazing. This is just showing the before and after. So these little fellas, scary fellas on the left, they were obviously just backlit with the blue. And so we replaced some of the blue, some of it just stayed. I learned a lot about the colour waves and getting the colours correct through this process. And we just added a little bit of front light to the scary sculptures. They're still scary, but they're lit better now. This is one of my obsessions, shall we say, bathrooms. So this is actually the men's smoking room, which was originally the men's smoking room. And you can see on the top left-hand corner, sorry, I don't know what's going on with all the images there, the top left-hand corner, this was how this room was lit, and it had been lit for a long, long time with this beautiful ceiling-mounted oyster. So going back to maybe the Sackler crossing and the uplight, what we used was uplights to the fireplace, set quite close to pick up on the frieze details, but with a wide beam, so it threw light up and actually lit the rest of the room, and there's nothing else in there. And I really feel like it imbues that sense of gentleman's smoking room, just a little bit moody room. Not that anybody goes in there and smokes these days, I hope. But we had to be really, really careful about where we took out lights and where we replaced lights, because all the plaster work had to be done by a heritage plasterer. So if we took something out, it had to be plastered over by the heritage plasterer. I hope they took that camera out at some point, but I'm sure they didn't. So actually, that's probably the owner on that bottom left image looking at the bills from the heritage plasterer after we've taken out another load of that horrible ceiling mounted lights. So this room I love, just the simplicity of it and just letting the building do its thing. These are the toilets. So before the toilets, great subject. On the left-hand side is how they were lit before. So these toilets are amazing. I hate to say they're in the deep, dark depths of the theatre, but they had some great bones in there. The doors, you can see they're original. So we worked really closely. We wanted it to be quite special. We feel that some places can get left and forgotten about, especially toilets, and we were a little bit further away, and we just wanted to bring it up a bit so you're still getting that sense of theatre even when you're downstairs in the toilet. So on that bottom left, that's how it had been lit for years. And all we did on the right-hand side was put some bulkhead lighting in the toilets and then lit the mirrors in this bespoke brass that we worked closely with a local manufacturer for. And that's pretty much all we did, kept the lighting localised to where it needed to be, didn't add, again, downlights to the plaster ceiling, but I think you can see it's a real change. I think that's the client down there as well, and we're all puzzling over how we're going to fix these bathrooms up. This is just a few of the elements, this area. This is the entry, and there's just so much going on. So again, we just picked out a few areas and just really lit them, backlight, front light, and just no downlights actually, not much general downlight. And the client actually said that after we'd lit a few of these features that she hadn't actually seen them before, so that was a nice touch. The ceiling in the entry was lit blue before we did this. So what we did, we added the downlight to the frieze all around just to soften the blue. If you've got a colour and you don't have any other light, it's really harsh, and that's what we were finding when we first did this entry. The other thing about this entry was the little stars you can see. So we read the heritage script, and apparently there'd been starry sky in here way back in the day. So we recreated this with some really tiny low glare downlights, but we concentrated them over the stairs for safety aspects. So the client was really concerned about safety, and we were telling her we weren't going to put any downlights in. So we created a very tiny starry sky ceiling. As you can see, all the elements added together created drama and effect when you first walk into the space. That's the foyer before and afterwards. Again, just really sad, just a really sad old building. But the amazing thing was you could see the carpet. They pulled the carpet up, they found that tiling and got it restored. It was just an amazing day, I think, for everybody on site when that carpet came up and this was found. Yeah, it just looks amazing. But you can see there the blue just on its own was just so overpowering. So by adding that soft downlight to the frieze, just really warmed up the space, made it feel more inviting, and adding the little uplights to the doorways so people could find their way into the theatre. My next project, which I'm just going to quickly go through, completely the opposite, is a modern end of trip space. For those that don't know, end of trips is if you work in a corporate environment, often they will have showers, bike storage, and sometimes yoga spaces. So this is one we worked here in Melbourne, but there's two parts to this. We originally worked on the room where you see Dale, the lovely architect there, sitting and reading. This part of the room that's closest to here is very warm, very welcoming. And the new space you can see beyond, which was the yoga studio, we completely changed it. We made it cool. We made it very much daylight. It's 2 stories underground, so we really tried to recreate daylight with this. So this is the original part, still a little bit corporate, but very warm all times. So where that lady is sitting on the bottom left, that's where we knock through to the new yoga studio. So as you can see, it's very warm, very inviting, very come and have a shower, take your time, sit and read a paper. But what we wanted with the punch through is it to be completely different and white and cool. So that's the view as it is now, which I think has really worked. So this is playing around with maybe colour temperatures, which we'd like to do. Cool and warm can work well together. So this is a space, very daylighty. Again, like I say, it's 2 stories underground. So we really tried to recreate daylight. And yes, there's plants in there. And yes, they are real. And yes, they are lit without plant growing lights. I'm not going to go into plant growing lights and exactly what we used here, but I am informed 2 years later, they are still alive. So it's created this sense of daylight underground, and it is a real wow factor when you go down there. This is in the yoga studios, and again, we wanted to create some daylight. So we created this detail with the architects where it's just got a super cool concealed LED strip just to create a crack of light. So the whole theory behind this was creating those little corners and niches and cracks of light. We put up lights in the planting, so there's quite high-powered down lights up in the where the bamboo grows. But we put some up lights as well to get some dapple and soften the space. It's still concretey, so we just wanted to soften it and create a little bit of a... Actually, it feels very much like you're on holiday. There's a lot of shadows, and again, going back to the original Sackler Bridge I was talking about, is about that nature and the reflections and dapples that still stay with me, and I'm still trying to get into designs even now. This is the overview looking the other way. What we really try and do is mix warm and white and have these cracks of light. On the far right there, you can see a detail I'll go into, which is super warm on the timber, just to create this element of lighting beyond. On the left, you can see where the plants are lit. It's very cool. It's about 4,000. I think we mixed it between 4,000 and actually 5,000 kelvins, just get the lighting on the plants. So you get this element of daylight and almost moonlight actually sometimes at night time. This is one of the details we did for the cracks of light within the timber. They just add that element of warmth in what is actually quite a cool and harsh space with concrete feelings. We ensured the detail was large enough to get the Sparky's fingers in if anything ever goes wrong, which is really important. And again, just showing here, the timber's lit a little bit warmer to add that. We didn't want it to feel like an icebox with all the glass and the cold lights, the plants. There's warmer tones through this space as well. This just shows the feeling that I think this space gives. You've got the warm tones in the background. You've got the false daylight coming from the ceiling. It's actually got a skylight, but the building is surrounded by 40 stories upstairs. So we did full daylight modelling, but not much daylight came down through here. So again, we were just trying to get that sense of day in here, which I think we've managed to do. That is not daylight, that is actually lighting. So just again, the power of lighting and transforming a space that was formerly a car park and is now this amazing, what a great way to start your day at work. People just chilling out on the swing as you do before you start work. It's a real sense of calm in here, I've got to say. You go in there and just the sense, they've really worked through the sense, and they've got acoustics and audio. It's almost like a cave-like sound going on. Amazing space. The lighting honestly makes it feel like you're on a holiday, and yet you're in the centre of a cosmopolitan city here in Melbourne. and you're 2 stories underground in a former car park. And I think this really sings to what lighting can do within a space and how it can make people feel. And the play with nature, it's great that we can keep the plants alive. I'll check back in 2 years, see if they're still going. That's my talk over. I just want to say thank you to everyone. Sorry, it's been quite quick to run through this. Thank you to Sharon and the team at Women in Lighting for putting all this together, all the people behind the scenes, there's a lot of people, the sponsors. And hello to everyone who knows me, and hello to anyone else who doesn't. It's Friday night here in Melbourne where I'm doing this recording, and I'm about to go off and have a glass of wine. So thank you again for listening. Enjoy your coffee or your lunch or whatever you're having where you are watching this, and thank you for listening.